Hi, I'm Phil Ashey from the American Anglican Council with your weekly Anglican perspective. The new Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, faces the enormous challenge really of re-evangelizing the United Kingdom. And in his address, his first address to the Church of England General Synod, he said this about England and the society that the Church faces.
In some things we change course and recognize the new context. Revolutions change policy. In others we stand firm because truth is not set by culture, nor morals by fashion. But let us be clear, pretending that nothing has changed is absurd and impossible.
Now, it's interesting, he says, in some things we change course and recognize a new context because of revolutions. At other times, we stand firm because truth is not set by culture. And he's really raising the question there, well, what is it that we don't compromise on? When we seek to reach people with the transforming love of Jesus, are there parts of the Bible that we cut out because we don't want to offend them? Are there things we don't say up front because we don't want to push them away? Do we let go of parts of the Christian faith that are offensive in order to win people to Jesus? And frankly, the gospel doesn't allow us to do that. Jesus certainly doesn't allow us to do that. When he was in a different culture, talking with a Samaritan woman by the well, he certainly built relational bridges to her, but he also confronted her with the very problem of brokenness that she needed to address in her own life. When Paul, following Jesus' example of evangelizing, wrote to the Corinthians in that very first letter, he said in chapter 9 that I've become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some. And so he becomes a Greek to the Greeks and a Jew to the Jews and those under the law to those under the law, so that by all means possible he can reach people for Christ. But in the same letter, Paul also says he's not going to give up any of the gospel. He says in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, "For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved it is the power of God." And then he goes on in verse 21 to say, "For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand miraculous signs and Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God." So you see, we don't give up the gospel. We build as many relational bridges as we possibly can, but we don't sacrifice the gospel in order to be politically correct.